everyone, this is Laura. It's a gorgeous Thursday early afternoon and I'm driving back up Oak Creek Canyon as I'm talking to you. I've just got my little recorder on my phone in my hand while I'm driving back up the canyon. I'm driving back up the canyon from one of our local mastermind meetups, training sessions that we've had here this morning. I met with Amalea and Susie and Marianne down at Garland's this morning, and we were just basically getting together to review some of the week's training. So we're just about through week 1 of our trainings in the Successful Spirit online 1-year course, and I found it just incredibly useful to have check-ins with you guys as you go through the course to make sure everyone's on task and make sure everyone understands what they're doing and where they're at. And this week especially, that was just a really important thing for us to do, because there were some really big setup parts going on today for a lot of the businesses. The trainings this week focused on getting your website up and running. So we did, seemingly very basic things this week, like buying a domain name and getting that domain name hosted and putting WordPress on that domain name. And now we're having a meetup this week here locally for those of us that want to custom design templates for their WordPress blogs, so that they look and feel, very customized, using some software for custom template design that I have called Artisteer. If anyone else in the mastermind wants to go play around with that, I did post a 45-minute video showing you me tooling around on Artisteer, and it's the very bottom video in week 1 of the online course if anyone is interested in doing this from a distance. So we did all of this week, and then we had a 1-hour or maybe 2-hour meeting this morning going over all of these trainings, answering all of the questions that were coming up, and there were some questions that were just really pressing concerns that weren't even to do with the week's training. Amalea has, a stack of business cards apparently that's years and years old that she doesn't know what to do with, but she'd love all of those business cards to actually show up in a CSV file of email contacts that she can start emailing. So we discussed that in today's training. And we went pretty deep, and then we actually went into WordPress and started tooling around, not too much, but just a little bit of setup stuff on WordPress. And then I directed all of the students who are with us today to that 2.5-hour WordPress content build-out training that I have in week 1 of the trainings. But what I'm realizing as I'm driving back up the canyon today to Flagstaff is that at the end of the session today, everyone got to a point, and I think this is going to be, sort of a regular occurrence of something we just need to start managing right now in the first week. Everyone got to a point with what we were covering that they felt overwhelmed. That it was a lot, it was too much, it was all of this new skill set, and a lot of these people are in the boat of, we're just now learning the lingo of online marketing. We're still learning the vocabulary, so things can get overwhelming pretty quickly when you don't even understand the words that people are using in the training sometimes. So we're sort of doubling back and explaining what a tab versus a sidebar is and what a header is and all of this stuff that's actually really, really important to get a good grasp on. But it is going to seem at first, if you're in a boat like this, it's going to seem a bit discouraging from time to time, because you're going to be here thinking, oh my gosh, I don't even understand the words that are coming out of Laura's mouth, let alone what the training is about this week, right? So that's a very overwhelming place to be in. And so I just wanted to give you a quick Laura's thoughts and big picture sort of meditation as I rise up out of the floor of the canyon here back to the heights of Flagstaff, back to the altitude. I'm sort of also rising out of the trenches of this morning's training, and coming back up to the big picture here. And I just want to remind you guys quickly about what that big picture is, because I think it's really important to keep your perspective, and that's really where we ended up when Amalea and Marianne and Susie ended up getting to that point of overwhelm. You know, that point of proverbially throwing up your hands and going, oh my gosh, I don't even understand the words coming out of her mouth. That's where I went to, right? I went to, okay, well, let's look at this in a big picture perspective here. Where were you at 2 weeks ago? You know, you didn't have a website, let alone, you know, figuring out how to actually edit your own content on your own website without an expensive web developer. If you take the big picture view of what you've already done in the first couple of weeks in the program, oh my gosh, you're already light years ahead of where you were at when you did the summit. You know, so I just started reminding everyone of that. And then Amalea had a concern of just being overwhelmed and too much to do, and the reminder there was, you know, yes, we're just going to give you an assignment every week, and that's what you focus on. Yes, I'm going to pull into tangential trainings, and I'm going to give you perspective when you ask me a seemingly simple question. I'm going to go into a very lengthy explanation of the reasoning behind my answer a lot of the time, because I really fully want you to understand as much as you can of my reasoning behind my recommendations for you. But I know that at some point in my reasoning, I'm going to lose you, right? Because I'm 4 or 5 years ahead of you in web development. So of course, at a certain point, there are going to be things that are just too much or too overwhelming or too complicated right now. And you have to be kind to yourself, and you have to know that you're only 2 weeks in. And as long as you go home and do what the week's assignment is, you're golden. You're already miles and miles ahead of where I was at when I was at your stage in web development. You're already ahead of the game, because you've got me sort of filtering what the most important thing is to focus on and telling you exactly what the most important thing to focus on every week is. And some weeks you'll end up feeling ahead, and some weeks you'll feel behind, you know? And that's just the nature of it. But just remember to keep that big picture perspective on what we're doing and where we're going. So I just wanted to, and this is so cool, because I actually just lifted up off the rim of the canyon, and I'm driving through the pine trees now on the top. And so the top-down perspective on this, I'm just going to tell you a story. It just came out of closing up the training with that perspective, making sure everyone was okay and was actually going to, you know, stick around for the week and go through the next bit with us. And then after we got, you know, comfy with where we were at again, and comfy with the overwhelm, you know, Marianne started telling me a story about some of her paintings that are actually going to be going on display in Sedona this week. And she's thrilled to have them on display. She's 15 years into her journey with this particular set of paintings, and all of a sudden it's now starting to come together and make sense. Well, I want to just briefly just suggest that when all is said and done, you think about this process that you're in right now of learning how to create and manage the content of your own website, your own blog posts, your own website, your own blog posts, your own pages on your website, adding videos into that website, adding images into that website, managing your own content. Managing your own content is really nothing more than figuring out how to create in a different medium, right? So just like Marianne at some point in her past had to learn to pick up a paintbrush and mix colors to create something beautiful on a canvas. Or, you know, perhaps some of you at some point in the past remember how difficult it was when you were first learning to write as an 8th grader or a 7th grader, and learning all of the different types of components of a paragraph and components of grammar, you know, and how tricky that was. at first to remember what an adverb was and what an adjectival phrase was, and all of that went into constructing a paragraph way back in the day when you were 12 or 13 years old. And pull yourself back to those points in your life where you were learning the structure behind a creative process like writing or painting or playing a musical instrument. And see if you can, in your mind and in your heart, remember that what we're doing right now with learning to create content on a website is really no different than all of those other experiences that you've already had and you've already succeeded at in your life, where you've learned to create something in a different medium. Right now, the WordPress content build-out training that's 2.5 hours of me just fire hosing through creating a site really fast, and you will have to pause it, and there are things in that training that are not going to make sense, and you're going to skim over them, and some of the bits in that training you're going to follow along with, and you're going to be right there with us. That's great. It's really just treat it in the exact same way as if I was teaching you how to play a guitar, or to paint in oil, or to draw in pastel, or to compose a poem in iambic pentameter, or treat it just like that, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're teaching you the fundamental technicalities that are going to eventually enable you to soar and create art. And so if you can just stick with this first couple of weeks of training and get through the techie part, which is a bit of a drag for most of us, especially as creative types, eventually creating a blog post, creating content online is going to be just as simple as picking up a pen and paper for you. It really is. And that's the big picture perspective that at this point I feel is really important for everyone to just keep in their hearts. I know it's a slog when you're learning a new instrument. And at first, there's going to be things that you need to practice over and over and over again. You're going to need to practice your scales. You're going to need to put up a few dummy blog posts just to make sure you understand how to do them. That's practicing your scales in WordPress, pretty much, okay? So just think of what we're doing for the first couple of weeks of this 1-year course as simply learning the scales, learning the chords, learning the harmonies, learning how to punch a key. All of that technical stuff, that's exactly where we're at right now with your online business. So just keep that perspective in mind, keep it in your heart, realize that it's not going to be this way forever. This is just the fundamental stuff that we need to do. And the whole reason that we're doing it in the first place is to give you the tools that you need to keep soaring and to keep creating and to keep channeling your divine inspiration through and out and manifesting it in the world. And this is just our vehicle. This is our tool. This is our instrument through which we're going to be doing this. So know that there's a higher purpose behind all of this. It will get easier, and hang in there. So I just felt really compelled to share that with you as I drove up the canyon today, because I think really and truly that perspective on how to emotionally and mentally handle the process of learning something as intimidating as web content management, especially for us, is really important, because I don't want you faltering emotionally or mentally in the next week or two, and I want you to understand that I really do get it. I really do get that this is tough. This is like learning a new musical instrument. It's going to be tricky at first, and that's why we're really going at your pace for the next few weeks to make sure that you really are very, very comfortable with these fundamentals before we go on. Okay? So just bear that in mind. Note that I'm here if you have any questions about the tuning of your instrument at all, and I will see you guys on Monday.